Every year about 20,000 people disappear without a trace in Russia. And I could never even think that I would be one of them. I'm sure everyone has been in such a state when the thoughts in the head turn into a sticky gray mass, the legs wander forward, obeying only primitive instincts, and the gaze is directed somewhere into emptiness. This is exactly the state I was in that evening when I wandered into this alley. Immersed in thoughts about the difficulties at work, I must have missed the right turn and did not notice that for several tens of minutes I could not go out to my house. As if coming out of a trance, I looked around and realized that I had lost my way, turning onto the wrong street. In front of me was a classic nook, consisting of 3-block 4-story buildings built back in Soviet times, a pile of garbage near one of the walls, and a lonely street lamp. I must have walked a little further in my thoughts and did not notice the substitution among the monotonous cityscape. In addition, some absent-mindedness and slight topographic cretinism were faithful companions on my life's path, and therefore such situations did not cause much surprise. Cursing quietly, I leaned against a lonely street lamp and stared straight at the incandescent lamp burning in the darkness. Many moths, as if nothing had happened, scurried around the heated glass, dying and falling to the ground in attempts to get closer to such an alluring light of a heated tungsten filament. After standing like this for another 10 minutes, I, having put my thoughts in order, quickly walked in the opposite direction. However, after passing through the arch between the houses, I again saw the same street lamp in front of me. I would like to say that I felt shock or surprise, but there was nothing of the kind. A picture quickly arose in my head of how I, confused in the darkness, went in the wrong direction and wandered even further, right into the jungle of courtyards unknown to me. I immediately turned around and, quickening my pace even more, moved towards another exit from the alley, but the damn lantern was waiting for me around this turn. Thoughts swarmed in my head like a flock of buzzing insects, and my tired mind refused to analyze the information. Not wanting to realize what was happening, I already broke into a run and in a few minutes ran past the same ill-fated lantern a dozen times. I could swear that the same moths flashed near him, as if they did not notice my night visit. After a few more minutes of sprinting, I became very dizzy, forcing me to collapse exhaustedly straight onto the damp asphalt. Thus began the first days of my imprisonment. At first it was not easy. I screamed, tried to break windows, call for help. It was all in vain. Every time a stone hit the old-looking glass, only a dull thud was heard and a piece of rock bounced back, as if it had collided with an invisible barrier. As luck would have it, there was not a single drain in the alley, and attempts to climb into the windows of the first floors were unsuccessful. No matter how much effort I put in, the old window frames did not give in. What can we say? Behind the layer of dust that covered them, nothing was visible except pitch darkness. Even at night no one turned on the lights in the apartments. Only now the unreality and fake artificiality of the environment caught my eye. The windows were curtained or covered with a thick layer of dust, the absence of labels on the bottles lying here and there. And even the cardboard boxes from which I made a primitive bed for myself did not have a single inscription in human language, only strange symbols and stripes, similar to the scribbles of a child trying to imitate writing. It was as if I found myself in the scenery for some kind of film, except that the person who made them saw Russian alleys only in pictures, having an extremely vague idea of what it was and what it was even needed for. After long weeks of waiting, people finally came to see me. It was a young guy walking hand in hand with some girl whose hair was dyed bright red. As soon as I headed in their direction and tried to say something, the young man looked at me in surprise and immediately grabbed the girl by the wrist, quickening his pace. I managed to squeeze out only a few wheezes from my parched throat before the couple disappeared around the bend. At that moment I literally wanted to howl at the injustice of this world. By stopping even for a second, these people could have saved my life and pulled me out of this nightmare. However, now I understand that it would not have changed anything. After them, others came, the same couples, intellectuals, drunkards, even homeless people. All of them, as one, just looked away and quickened their pace, trying to quickly leave the ill-fated alley. I tried to chase after them, throw myself at everything that came to hand, or scream heartrendingly, attracting attention to myself. But it was pointless. Something that imprisoned me here seemed to mock me, throwing up visitors exactly at the moment when I least expected it. Even instantly taking off, I only needed a split second before the uninvited guests disappeared around the corner, completely ignoring my pleas for help. And it wasn't even my inappropriate behavior or unkempt appearance. Some ancient, animal feeling told them that something irrational and wrong was going on here. as if seeing how a predator was dealing with the prey it had caught. They, obeying their instincts, saved themselves, throwing their relative to be torn to pieces. I kept wondering who this predator was. Aliens or intelligence agencies conducting their experiments on me? No, the alley itself is that same predator. It lures its victims by pretending to be a simple cluster of houses. He looks out with an empty and cold gaze from many windows, while unsuspecting goons like me walk into his arched mouth. While collecting rainwater and eating what little food I could dig up among the piles of garbage, one thing struck me as funny. No matter how much I made noise, tried to break glass or make fires from boxes scattered everywhere, no one even thought of intentionally coming and finding out what was happening here. It was as if I was separated from the rest of the world, even despite the open sky above my head, like a fly caught in a web in the corner of the room, buzzing and fluttering, but completely invisible to the eye of the average person. Closing my eyes more and more often, I saw the same alley in front of me. The memories faded, turning into a single gray mass, and I could no longer say what my name was, where I was from, or even what city I was in. All this has lost its meaning, but old memories were replaced by new ones. I could, without a single mistake, name the color of the curtains in each apartment whose windows looked at my abode. Every piece of asphalt, every mark and inscription on the wall seemed so familiar, even inseparable from me. Hunger and thirst eventually faded into the background, and I stopped getting up in the morning to collect rainwater. Only this notebook with an old ballpoint pen helps me remember how I got here. But I feel that this too will soon disappear. The letters gradually lose their meaning, turning into a lot of ornate squiggles and strange drawings on tattered pieces of paper. Only with an incredible effort of will do I manage to remember their meaning and continue writing. I thought for a long time about what I could add to the ending, some advice that could help another poor fellow like me who got here, but nothing came to mind. After all, if I myself knew something similar, I would not have found myself in such a situation. Now I feel very sleepy, and my strength is slowly leaving my body. I feel like this place is frozen in anticipation of the moment when it can finally devour its prey. But I don't care anymore. I didn't have the strength left to somehow stop him. If you do find my notes, then under no circumstances linger in this place. Avert your eyes and try to quickly forget what happened. Don't show it, and then, perhaps, the alley will not notice you and will let you out of its web, having had enough of the previous victim. At least that's all you can hope for.